Oh,
Good morning. How are you?
I'm living. How about yourself?
We're good, thank you. How's
Good.
your family?
Pardon me?
How's your family?
They're good. They're
Good.
good. They're being really good. The kids are being really good about everything. So
That's
it,
good.
it's challenging, that's for sure. But we're getting through it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
So how you finding it from a business perspective?
Well, it's definitely put a pause on everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, we aren't doing any form of outbound sales outreaches right now. We've just put a halt on everything because it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem appropriate, right?
Yeah. Well, we're finding that there's a different type of appropriation that needs to be made. Um, a lot of the clients that we've been working with are asking questions around, what do they do during this time to be useful instead of, trying to sell what they normally sell. How can they help where it still is helping themselves? So yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of trades asking us, like, if you've got hands, you can help. It's just maybe not what your business is established for, but it's just a kind of a, in a crisis time, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I think it's a time of reflection, really. Like, we need to pause and kind of look at what we're doing and look at how we can do it differently. I even feel that once this is over, that things are going to be done differently. Like, business is not going to be the same as it was.
no, it's going to be absolutely different. I think what people are having a hard time with is generations of being trained to work harder and achieve success and keep moving forward. And actually sitting at home is the harder thing to decide to do. So I think a lot of people are struggling with that a little bit. And um, right now, when we have the choice, people are kind of choosing to still want to work and want to do things. I mean, it's in some instances there is no choice, and then with those that are lucky that can work from home, it's great. But for those that can't, and they're still trying to stay as operational as possible, I think they're having a hard time with what it means to sit back and do nothing, and then feeling like maybe that's hiding out versus being a soldier in it. But really, that's what it's the opposite. I mean, think if you can make the hard choice to do nothing, then um, not nothing, but stay home, then
Hmm.
that's the right thing to do.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, they can't push that message on us, harder. Like, I mean, that's it's really concerning, the people that are still out there and still, thinking that this is just like the common flu. It's not.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't know if you're familiar with the term the Overton window, but that's the stages we're going through right now. And 10 days ago, normal working environment, if if somebody had said we gotta stay home and do nothing 10 days ago, people would have thought that was ludicrous. And now we're looking at that as being um, the normal. And if you aren't staying home and trying to be away from other people, then that's ludicrous. And it's only been 10 days. I think it's just a matter of, it's probably a matter of less than another week before it becomes a lockdown.
Yeah, I think so too.
Maybe
But
less.
it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And, I'm really proud of our prime minister, putting politics aside.
Yeah.
I think he's doing a good job. He's remaining calm. He's focusing on the main issues at hand, and that is keeping everybody healthy. I think he's taking a lot of aggressive steps forward, and I think you're right. I think there's going to be a lockdown at some point. There has to be. That's the only way to contain this virus.
Yeah, we're seeing. It'd be interesting to see these new numbers. I think 50 more have been reported just this morning. So that's just in the province. It'd be interesting to see where those are coming from. If it's from the kind of the laggards getting back home from trips and stuff. Like the window is done on Sunday, I believe. That's it for anybody coming back. There's going to be no flights back in. Or from what I'm understanding, anyway, airlines are kind of halting completely. We've got clients in the airline industry, so we've got a little bit of inside knowledge on what's happening there. It's interesting to see if that's the kind of this last wave is already, there are people that are already infected. They're not new infections, they're just new reported. But I'm wondering if we're going to start to see some of the efforts we're putting together as a province and as a country starting to actually take some hold, or if it's going to continue. Because I know in what we're doing and in the world that we're living in with our clients, and even, we shut down last Friday. I made everybody start working from home last Friday, although we already have a pretty good remote working policy. So this was something we've been training for. We have all the systems and tools in place to do it. A lot of our clients that we're communicating with now are all dispatched remotely or shut down. So in our circles, that what I'm seeing is people are actually taking the advice and doing what they're being asked to do. But I'm coming to the office because the office is mine and I'm here alone. So it's a place where I can come where I know nobody else has been, and I'm not at risk of infecting anybody if I do have it, and I'm not at risk of getting infected. So it's a place where I can come and still take care of the business that I need to take care of, even if, while everybody else is kind of cast to their couch. But when I come into the office, I see things happening that I feel like are the types of things that should be halted. Example, there's a new gas line going in across, along the highway that I drive in on, and the hydrovac trucks and the welders are out there working, getting the gas line put in. I know it's an essential service if it was an existing gas line, but it's brand new, it's new construction. So I don't know if that's something that needs to proceed. And those are the types of things that I'm looking at, thinking there's groups of workers together. They're taking their breaks together. They're sitting in trucks together. Are they staying isolated at home, or are they not taking this seriously because their daily operations aren't? So why should they at home as well?
Yeah, it's a challenge because I mean, I'm trying to be very careful to, the messaging that I'm putting out there and our company's putting out there is, positive messaging, but in the same token, I think a lot of people aren't really taking this seriously. They don't realize the full impact of what could happen. Yeah.
Well, there's some great stats out there, but I think they're being presented probably in a way that looks like it's a worst case scenario all the time. And I think presenting things as worst case scenario leaves room for people to say, well, it won't get as bad as worst case scenario. So they make their own assumptions. What would be interesting to see is some real information being shared that's current case scenario and what's going to happen, and being accurate, on a daily basis. We're seeing a lot of comparisons between us and the rest of the world, where we're not the rest of the world. We have, a whole bunch of different social norms than China, than Italy, than even most of Europe. So, some of the conversations that I've been having, even with my in-laws, have been, in Italy, seniors are amalgamated and entwined into their communities, where in North America, we put seniors in senior centers away. So all the rates in Italy are going to be higher specifically because of that. Plus, when they locked down entire cities, not individuals. So Milan was not locked down. So they as families still got together and had meals and did the social side of things, which is very much an Italian value. So I think we're in a little bit different, where I don't feel like once we got notified that schools were closing and we were starting to do social distancing, that families started getting together in groups. I think everybody just kind of went home, or at least a lot of people just kind of went home and closed their doors, and moving only when needed. And I think that we're going to see, hopefully, maybe I'm being optimistic, but I think optimism is needed. I think I'm hoping that we're going to see the efforts that we're making take impact, and that the numbers we're seeing reported now are just because of, a lot of it is because of incubation delay. So We'll see. But I think that the people don't take advice of worst case scenarios because it sounds like conspiracy, or it sounds like doomsday talk. It sounds like end of the world, instead of being something that people can act on.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I think that's where we're going to spend a little bit of our time, knowing that, we have access to knowing how to market and how to build digital tools and create interesting communications, is to start to build some of these more realistic communication pieces that people can ingest and use and share, instead of sharing misinformation.
That's great. So what are your plans? How are you shifting what you're doing in your company?
So we have a couple of clients that we're working with that are, I wouldn't say essential, but they kind of are. They're things that aren't, they're impacted, but their messaging is just changing. It doesn't mean they can't close their doors because they have, one of them is a member-based association that has 80,000 members that they need to communicate with. And those members don't come to their place of business. They're already communicating on a remote position. They have questions, they want answers, they need support. So the projects we were working on will probably shift and be paused, but then new projects will come in that support the kind of current situation. One of the clients we have, as I mentioned, is heavy into the airline industry. We're supporting them with a complete shift of mindset to be more remote working, because right now they can't stop. They're not an airline. They're just in that industry, and they're busier now than they've been in a long time, just because of the communications. And there's so much shift and change day to day in that industry right now. So we've moved from being, we've been doing a new website and creating content and helping them with their message, to do new projects and help from the sales channel. Now we've pivoted our tech knowledge and our tech team to support them to work from home and make sure all of their employees are set up appropriately. Outside of that, I mean, we're trying to stay positive and keep everybody busy, but it's going to be week to week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think everybody's looking at this as a week to week thing. So
I think that's all we can do right now. We just have to see how things play out.
Yeah.
And hope for the best, and hope that everybody's staying home and avoiding public situations as much as possible.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing that they're closing down the border. I think that's necessary. I know on the other side they're not taking things quite as seriously as we are here.
Yeah, we're going to definitely see some spikes on the south of us. I hope that they do act quickly. I know there was an announcement from California this morning where they've pushed the more smaller groups, under 10, I think, in self-isolation. They're taking the actions. They're taking the actions that we started this time last week now in California, but their numbers are already way higher than all of Canada just in California. But their population density is about the same. So, all of California and Canada is the same population. So hopefully theirs takes a hold quickly and their medical system can keep up.
Yeah, I've had phone calls with some of our clients across the border, and they're all saying the same things to us. They're very concerned, but the lack of proactiveness on that side of the border. A couple different clients I talked to basically said the same thing, that we're fortunate to be Canadians. We're fortunate to have the type of government that we have and what they're doing for us.
Well,
a lot of stuff that they've put in place for us, a lot of money that they're trying to inject back into people who need it the most, and even businesses. There's some good programs there that I think not everybody's going to survive this, but I think if businesses look at what they're doing and see how they can do it differently in this type of market, and then take advantage of the assistance that's available.
Yeah, well, I think some of the advice we've been giving a lot of our clients is to stay visible, be helpful,
Absolutely.
take advantage of the programs the government's offering. I think it's there's no need for heroics. They're put in place to make sure that the country can hit pause, and that everything. I know Premier Ford's been talking about people not losing their jobs. Well, that goes for entrepreneurs that run the companies as well. That we all have this opportunity to kind of put our lives on hold for a short period of time to make it so we can drop a hammer on this virus and come out of it hopefully sooner than later. I think it's going to be a rocky road for at least the next 6 months, but if we can collectively shut our doors, we can be through the worst of the outbreak in 4 weeks or less, maybe.
That would be awesome. That's written. I would love to see that if we can get through this in 4 weeks or less. And yeah, it's going to have an impact on the economy, but I think once things come back around, we're going to be stronger than ever. I do influx in business.
Absolutely. Well, people will be looking for ways to come out, to come back out into the sunlight, and I think there will be with the stimulus that the government is working on. We'll see people ready to kind of kickstart the economy right away. And luckily, we're in a position, in a time and a place where calls like this can exist and business can live through digital means. And I think you're right. Absolutely, business will be done differently on the other end forever. Business will be impacted forever from this.
Yeah, and I think there's some positives that are coming out of it. I mean, from the environmental aspect, you know me, I'm a bit of a tree hugger, and there's definitely been some positive. Like the Earth has already seen some positive impacts by less people out there putting their carbon footprints and pollution, and there's been an improvement in the climate. I'm sure you heard the stories with the dolphins and the canals. Yeah. So it's, I mean, it's sad that this had to happen to positively impact that, but I'm hoping that maybe moving forward, maybe there should be more business done this way. Remotely working from home. There's no reason why a lot of people can't work from home.
No, it's been legacy, right? It's been, this is the way we do things. So this is the way we do things. And this has given everybody the push needed, unfortunately, to kind of look at things a little bit differently. And I think we're going to see a shift in, even in times that people do work, and things will be a lot more scheduled and a lot less mandated between 9 and 5. And we'll see people have more control over their calendars. And if it works for them to, work 2 shifts a day versus 1, and they're at home, so it doesn't matter, they're not driving back and forth, then I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I've already seen it even just in the last 5 days of my team being full remote, because we come in, I had everybody coming in to collaborate in person on Wednesdays. But we were still very scheduled, even though we were remotely working between, certain business hours. And just this last week, with our mindset pivot to say, whatever clients need, we're going to do it as fast as we possibly can for them, because probably what they need is going to help them get through the next little bit. And we don't want to be the ones that hold them back from that. So we've started kind of doing rolling hours, and I've, been working I always work late, but, I've seen my team members come on and off and leave and come back. And because they've got their kids home, they're doing things with their kids 9 to 5 or in windows when they're awake or sleeping. And we're trying to kind of find what the new normal is. And it actually works really well. And because we're forced into it, we have no choice. But because we have no choice, and we're now experiencing something pretty special that we never had a chance to before, because we were just stuck in the ways of, this is when business is done, and this is when life is. This is when life is, and it's kind of that line is sort of blurred and disappearing.
Mm-hmm. This could have a real positive impact on mental health as well, because I think if employees are given the flexibility, to work around their family and around their commitments, and there definitely has to be some discipline on the employee side. Not everybody is able to focus and work from home, but I think once people come around to getting their work from home schedules in place, it can work out really well for a lot of people. Because I think a lot of people feel very pressured by, running the gauntlet, those of us with young families and kids that are in extracurricular activities and, working the 9 to 5 and all the traffic. I can't even imagine what it must be like to have to do the daily commute every day on the 401 to Toronto. I'm quite fortunate. We have an office in Oakville that I go to periodically as needed. So, you know, I've been fortunate for quite some time to be able to work from home, and all of our staff are remote and working from home. And, you know, it does allow for, I think, a better quality of life.
Yeah. Have you always been remote, the staff?
With Big Rig Wraps, yes.
Yeah.
When I had the digital marketing company, CBS Group, we did have an office where everybody worked from.
Yeah.
And before I sold the company, as things started to, you know, move more towards work from home, we had our star number one employee was from North Bay, and he really wanted to move back to North Bay, and he was really depressed about it. So we, this would have been around, oh my goodness, 2000 and maybe 2008, 2009. So he was the first employee I ever had that worked remotely, because I had, you know, concerns about it too. You know, how is this going to work? How are we going to be able to collaborate? And, you know, we didn't have the tool. We didn't have Zoom then.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so we didn't have the tools in place that we have now, but that was the start of it. And, you know, from a business perspective, it, you know, eventually, right up until when I sold the company, all of the staff were working remotely. We had staff in Quebec, we had staff in BC, North Bay, and then a few of them locally in GTA. So, I mean, it opens up a larger pool of available employees. And I think, you know, as long as you have the right contingencies in place. And I know one of our clients owns a recruiting company. And I know I had a chat with him yesterday about this, and he said, you know, some of the concerns that employers are having is, you know, lack of control.
Yeah.
You know, they're concerned because they're paying an employee by the hour, and they don't know, is that employee really working? What's getting done? What's not getting done? That type of thing. So, you know, there's a lot of tools online that, you know, for collaboration and for task management. And I came across one that even does screenshots, you know, so you can monitor screen activity. Now, in my personal situation, I'm not using that for any of my staff because they've been working remotely for a long time, and we have everything in place. But maybe for that employer that's just starting this, you know, they might want to look for a tool like that. I think it's called Hub Staff, and it's about $10 a seat per employee, and, you know, you can see how much time they're spending on all the individual tasks. So
yeah, I think there's a little bit of a shift too that a lot of business owners need to make in their thinking, which I'm assuming that you probably already have, since you have a remote workforce, and I know I already have because I have a remote workforce, and that's not in the number of hours that are being logged, but the performance of the outputs. So my measurement isn't, did you work your 9 to 5? My measurement is, did the client receive what they needed to receive based on when we told them they get it? And that's kind of my barometer or my marker. I mean, my staff are all paid not on an hourly basis; they're paid salary, and then, you know, there's that expectation of what does that mean? Well, we have that in their contracts, but really what it means is we have a conversation in advance as a team to say what's it going to take to get this job done, and then build the work back and then deliver it. And if we deliver it, then we've met all the criteria of the purpose of that job. And if who am I to penalize a developer, for example, who can do their job in 6 hours instead of 8, and still not be cutting corners? So, you know, a long time ago, I've shifted my mindset to kind of look at the performance and the outcomes, not the path to get there. And I think that's where a lot of business owners are going to need to think a little bit differently, where they're not, you know, counting the minutes punched in on the clock. Although there are some businesses that like actually bill that way.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different, but then that's going to be more on the tools and the employees themselves to be really good at logging their outputs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that you and I are fortunate in that regard because we were ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You know, we've deployed this type of workforce for a number of years now, and I think the fact that you and I also, you know, do the work that we're giving our employees, that also you have a good gauge for what's going on, and you know what the expectation level should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that definitely helps.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, I think, for, you know, some employers to, you know, develop their own expectations and, their own plan on how it's going to work. But, if eventually we can get to that point where, the majority of the workers that don't need to be, like, I can understand, with manufacturing lines, you can't, you can't have workers from home. There's certain companies that, it's just never going to happen. But with, the office and the administrative workers, there's no reason why they can't be working from home. There's a lot of jobs where, the company would be that much more efficient and profitable if they weren't paying the huge overheads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Office, right?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And there's always going to be careers where work from home is impossible. But there are a ton of careers right now where work from home is absolutely doable. And like we both said here, this is going to change everything. So, so what's the next 2 weeks look like for you, as far as what you know?
So what we're executing in our own business, or
personal, like what are you thinking about? What are you kind of wanting to work through? For me, I need to have some sort of thing to be working towards always. It doesn't have to be career wise or business wise, but something to be working towards, to know that I'm doing the right things. And some of the stuff that I've set up are, making sure that my kids are still being educated, and making sure that they're still getting the exercise that they need, and that they're getting the nutrition that they need, and they're getting their kind of their mental health taken care of. Same with my wife and myself. We're taking this time to maybe exercise a little bit more than we normally would, to make smart decisions on what we're putting into our bodies, for sure, and making sure that we stay healthy, making sure that we don't just avoid getting sick from this virus, but from getting injured doing anything, because the last thing we want to do is have to go to the hospital or to a doctor's office for anything outside of just this virus, right? We don't want to be a collateral damage, and we don't want to clog the system with something that's unnecessary. So, making sure that we've got kind of a good plan in place for staying safe outside of this COVID-19 virus. We've kind of put a few things in place. So I'm just curious to see if you're doing the same.
Somewhat. I don't think I've organized myself as much as you have. From a personal perspective, I've picked up some online courses that I'm going to do.
Right.
I've always wanted to do, but always have been way too busy to do. From a business perspective, we've changed our messaging, and it's more, how can we help? How can we support? We're offering free calls to any business that wants to talk about how they should pause and pivot their marketing. If we can offer some little nugget of advice that will help, that's our way of trying to help the community with what they're going through right now.
Right.
Other than that, on a business perspective, again, we're just putting out a lot of information that is hopefully positive and hopefully useful to help people. Written a couple of blogs. From a family perspective, my husband works for the government, so he's been home since Friday. Friday was his last day. Same thing with our son, and we're actually having some good quality family time. It's a forced holiday. I think we're going to tackle some stuff in the basement.
Good. Hey, I got that on my list. I got basement stuff on my list for sure. I've got a couple. I think you made some good points there about self-learning and making sure that you can take the time where you're actually forced to take time for yourself, and slow down. So the online courses are great opportunity for people to come out of the other end of this, smarter and even more skilled than they are going in, and ready to really take on some world challenges. I think that's going to be something that we see too, is a bit of a binding together, and we start to look at other humans as a lot closer to ourselves than we can maybe thought about before, where we're a lot more the same than we are different.
Yeah, it definitely changes your outlook on things. I know I was always that person where I never would have, avoided a work commitment because I had a little cold. But last week, before everything really, changed, I'm thinking it was Wednesday, I have a mastermind group. It's my group, and I didn't go because I had a little bit of a cold, and I thought, no, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
I also had a committee meeting, which, I'm very dedicated to my committee, and I'm always there. I've never missed one, and I skipped both of them, and it felt weird doing it. It felt like I was, because that's not how I was, I was trained that, oh, well, you got a headache, you take some Advil and you go to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Advertising's a beautiful thing when it comes to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
So I mean, it changes your way of thinking, because it never occurred to me in the past that, it's almost kind of selfish to go out there and still, be around other people when you're carrying a bug. I mean, for me, a cold was not a big deal, right? But, now I looked at it a little differently. I'm sure that I don't have, the virus, but I had, a sore throat and a little bit of a cough. And I thought, I'm not going to subject my people, my colleagues to this. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think one of the smartest things I've read is to not walk around assuming that everybody has this virus, but to walk around assuming that you do, and then let your actions fall out accordingly. So if everybody assumes that they've got it and they don't want to spread it to anyone else, that's the way to start thinking about it. Yeah, that's good. And yeah, everybody I think will think a little bit differently about bringing a cold to work after this is all said and done. So, all right. Well, I got another call coming up, but I wanted to thank you for the chat. I really do appreciate you sharing kind of what you're going through as a marketing professional, and knowing that we're in very similar boats as starts to make everybody realize that they're not alone. So.
Yes.
Thanks.
If there's anything I can do to help support you with your business, let me know.
Absolutely. And
any messaging that you want put out there, shared, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. And I'm going to make that offer to you as well. And also to any other business owners. I'm more than happy to help, even just if conversation. And I know you already mentioned that you're already doing that. So that's great. So thank you, Angela.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Talk to you soon. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.